What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Baseball Banter here on the John Check Sports Media Network. And it's time, it's upon us. I've been waiting to come on here to make my picks for the LCS. I've been waiting for the LDS to be over with. And man, let's talk about that. What a hell of a divisional series we had. So, we'll begin with the wild card games. Basically, you guys already know what Pittsburgh lost to Chicago. Jake Arrieta, complete game shutout. I think he threw a 4-hitter. I mean, the boy was nasty. And then Pirates fans are sitting there crying about the system. Oh, it's BS. The Pirates won more games than the Cubs, which I think was 2 games more than the Cubs, 1 or 2 games more than the Cubs. And yet the Cubs get to move on, and the Pirates are going home. Blah, blah, blah. The system's flawed. Yada, blah, blah, blah. Look, I understand you're mad because your team lost and you won 98 games. And, you know, you're done after one game. That's just the thing about baseball right now. You know, ever since 2011, when they had that Game 162, it was just amazing. The Red Sox get ousted, Tampa Bay makes it, and, you know, the Braves choke to the Phillies, and, you know, baseball's been striving to try to recreate that magic again. That's why all the teams started at the same time this year, at the very last day of the season, to where, you know, you had all these moments going on all at the same time, and, you know, teams couldn't watch, and blah, you know, I get it. It is a flawed system. You know, it's not right that a team did win that many games, but, you know, eventually we're going to see, you know, a team make it that it could be a 500, sub-500 team, and then people are going to complain if that team beats a over 500 team in the wild card. It just is what it is. But nonetheless, it was a great game. And the American League, it was the Yankees and Astros. And the Astros, who I didn't think was going to win this because they're not a good road team, went in New York, and Dallas Keuchel shut down the Yankees. It was an outstanding game, outstanding effort, outstanding performance. And so it was set. Astros, Royals, and then it was Blue Jays, Rangers, and then it was Cubs. Why can't I remember who the hell the Cubs played? The Cubs, Cardinals. For the first time ever in a playoff series, and it was the Dodgers Mets. So we'll start with the Astros Royals. The Astros and Royals series, what a hell of a series it was. The key game in this series was Game 4. Astros have a 2-1 lead. They won Game 1 in Kauffman, lost Game 2, which is a game they could have won to go up 2-0, but they blew a lead late. Common theme in this series. Game 3, they win in Houston. Game 4, Carlos Correa goes off. My boy has 2 home runs in this game, and the Astros, I believe, are up 4 runs going into the 8th. Now, the last month and a half, last 2 months of the season, there was a lot of questions about the Astros bullpen. Now, they were really locked down, really good to go the first half of the season. They were actually one of the best bullpens in baseball. When Houston was on top of the American League, I think they spent the most days in first place out of any team in the American League this year. Their bullpen was really good. You know, they were winning it on the road because they actually had the best record in the American League for about a month and a half, 2 months this year, and they were just a lockdown squad. Second half, they weren't as good. They were blowing some leads. You know, they couldn't win on the road. You know, their offense wasn't as good on the road as it was at home. And that's what I was scared of. But they're in Houston. Correa hits a couple of bombs. They're up 4 going to the 8th. And what happens? An error, some dink and dunk hits, you know, a blip and a blast, pretty much is what they call it. And the Royals come back and beat the Astros Game 4 to force a Game 5. And I knew it. I'm like, this is it. They're done. They're not going to come back and beat the Royals in Kauffman. They don't play good on the road. And after they blew a 4-run lead in the 8th inning, the Texas governor actually tweeted out, you know, congrats to the Astros making it to the ALCS. I'm looking at you, Texas. Well, the guy ended up looking like a dumbass because neither team made it, and he's sitting there counting his chickens before they hatch. And you know, he's like, "Oh well, that wasn't my account. It was it wasn't my personal account. It's you know, account that's my media team essentially runs that account. You know, because real famous people are don't have time to go on their freaking cell phones for 2 seconds and write out a tweet apparently. But neither here nor there. I just knew it was done. And so they had Johnny Cueto on the mound, and Colin McHugh started Game 5. And I was surprised it wasn't Keuchel, but Colin McHugh started it. And McHugh pitched pretty well for the time he was in there. He had a short leash. And Luis Valbuena hits a 2-run homer in this game to give the Astros a 2-0 cushion. And then it all blew up. The Royals tie it, I believe, in the 5th or 6th. Alex Gordon had a hit. Eric Hosmer had a key hit in that inning. And, the biggest hit was the 8th inning. Keuchel's on the mound. Kendrys Morales is up there. Blasts a 3-run shot. And the Royals moved on. And the Astros, I mean, they had their chance. And that team, they were very inconsistent. Their play was very inconsistent against the Royals. Jose Altuve went 0 for his last 17 in there. Carlos Correa did all he could. George Springer did all he could. Just some guys didn't step up. That they needed to step up, and their bullpen let them down, which was a common theme in the second half of the season for the Astros. They had their chance to make it to the LCS, but they blew it in Game 4. So then we move on to the Rangers Blue Jays, and what a hell of a series this was. So basically, first 2 games in Toronto, we got a 14-inning game. Blue Jays lose. They lose Game 1 because Donaldson and Bautista end up coming out of this game, and then Pete Rose is questioning their toughness because, back in my day, we didn't do that kind of thing. We broke an ankle and rubbed some dirt on it. We went back out there and ran. That kind of BS. And but the Blue Jays found themselves down 2-0 going into Texas. But here's what exactly I was scared of if I was a Rangers fan. Now, the Rangers back end of their bullpen was a lot better than I actually knew. Jake Diekman and a couple of those other guys, they're outstanding. I think his name was Russ Ollendorf. He was pretty good. The guy's name starts with a T. I think it's Scott Tolleson. They're a lot better than I gave him credit for, the back end of the bullpen. But rotational depth, I didn't think they had a lot of it. I thought that was what was going to kill them because they only had Cole Hamels as that closer. I didn't look at Colby Lewis or Derek Holland as that guy that could be that closer. When you're up 2-0 in a series and you need that guy to just put the nail in the coffin, advance you on, I didn't think they had that guy, the depth they needed. And it was going to roll around when they needed to Cole Hamels again to be that closer to get the series done. But most of the time, after you go up 2-0 and you allow 2 wins, well, you're probably going to lose the 5th game. Because the other team's got momentum. Well, Toronto's offense comes alive in Texas. They take both games pretty easily. I think one was an 8-1 game, and they won the other one by 4 or 5. Fast forward to Game 5. And oh my goodness, this is one of the greatest games you will ever see. In the 7th inning, the craziest inning ever. Sin-Soo Choo is up at the plate. He's got the bat out because he's adjusting his gloves. So he's got the bat, he's a left-handed batter, so he's got the bat out like this, and, he's adjusting his gloves and his bat and all that BS. And Russell Martin just casually, like a catcher does, chucks the ball. Well, the ball hits off the bat and goes up the third base line. Well, Rougned Odor was on third, and he comes darting home with his hair on fire. And he scores. Well, wait a sec. Hold it, because I was at the gym listening to the game. Because for some reason my gym is too good not to put on TBS. They got CNN on 13 different screens, but playoff baseball, I can't freaking get a TBS game on there. What the hell? But anyways, so I'm listening to it, and these Blue Jays commentators are going nuts. So wait a sec, because the one guy was a catcher. He's like, well, they should make the argument that, Sin-Soo Choo didn't try to, he was out of the batter's box with his hands, and, he was in the catcher's area. It should be batter's interference, dead ball. But the rule clearly states that if a catcher hits a batter's, a piece of the batter, like is the batter or the bat, whatever, the ball is in play. That's a live ball because that's considered an erred throw and it's an error. So Rougned Odor was awarded home, and the Rangers went ahead 3-2. Well, Toronto, they flipped. They're throwing beer on there. They hit this lady in the head with a baby, and one of the ground screw guys almost got hit with one of the bat blues, and that they're trucking out on the field, and they're treating us like it's a hockey game, like someone just got a hat trick. They're all throwing their hats on the field. I mean, they're going nuts. They're pissed. It's just like Atlanta in the very first play-in game ever. I forget who they played in the very first play-in game ever for the wild card. I don't know why I can't remember it. But, there was an infield fly rule called that shouldn't have been called. And then people in Atlanta got pissed and started throwing all that trash onto the field. It was Chipper Jones' last game ever. I don't know why I can't remember who they played. So they're checking stuff on the field. It was a 45-minute delay, and they call New York, and New York's like, no, you got the correct call, and blah, blah, blah. So we'll fast forward to the bottom half of the 7th. First 3 batters reach on an error, throwing errors. And then they tie the game, and then Joey Bats is up there with 1 out. He hits a 3-run shot and just stares at the pitcher for 1 second, and he doesn't even do a bat flip. He does a bat chuck. I mean, chucks this thing like 10 feet in the air. And, oh my God, you would have thought Joey Batista just murdered someone. The benches ended up clearing because I think it's Ollendorf or I forget the pitcher. He had a hell of a beard on the Rangers. I'm not too familiar with the Rangers bullpen because I didn't watch many Rangers games this year because they're the Texas Rangers and who cares. And but anyways, he taps Troy Tulowitzki on the butt walking off. No hard feelings, blah blah. And they bench is clear and tempers are flaring and they're pissed because Joey Batista does this bat chuck. And then all of a sudden the next day, Jose Bautista is classless. He's a jerk. He's an asshole. He should have never flipped. I'm not even going to call it a bat flip. But he should have never chucked the bat. It's against the unwritten codes of baseball. Can all that BS? Can all of that? You know why baseball's ratings have declined? You know why youth baseball is in a decline? You know why minority groups are in a decline? You watch a guy slam dunk a ball. What does he do? He's cheering. He's going nuts because he just put his nuts in another guy's face. I don't get the whole frickin' thing about that either. Why people go crazy when they dunk on someone. Oh my God, his ball's in his face. A football player, is in the end zone and he makes a big touchdown. And you got Odell Beckham Jr. doing the whip and the nay-nay, and you had Victor Cruz doing the salsa, and you'd have T.O. and Chad Johnson out doing themselves every single week, with touchdown celebrations. T.O.'s on the Dallas Star, spread out like this, or, Chad Johnson put on the Hall of Fame jacket, or I forget the guy's name, it was Torrey something, pulls the cell phone out and talks on the cell phone, and T.O. signs his name on the ball. Or no, that was Chad Johnson signs his name. Oh, no, was it? It was T.O. or Chad. I can't remember. It was one of those two guys. They signed their name. I think it was T.O. Signed the name on the ball. And, give the ball away. Or, in hockey, a guy after he scores a goal, he gets down on one knee and, does the little fist pump thing. And, the teammates are celebrating. Or a pitcher. A pitcher gets a big strikeout. And he's, jumping off the mound and fist pumping. I remember Max Scherzer had the bases loaded, no outs against the A's. And he got out of it. That man, he was slapping hands. He was going nuts. That's okay. Yasiel Puig comes over. And he takes the MLB by storm. But no. The old guard, the old guys that the predominant viewers of baseball nowadays, well, back in my day, this guy couldn't have did this, and this guy could have done. And then you got all these jackasses come out of the woodwork. Rick Sutcliffe, perfect example. Well, back in my day, he would have never made it to first base with that bat chuck. Go search Tom Lawless. Played for the Cardinals. I think it was in 1987. I think it was an LCS. The man, I think it was like a career sub-100 hitter. Hit 2 home runs in his entire career. My dude hits a bomb. He looks at it, struts, chucks the bat. Like Jose Bautista. And he watched this bad boy. And he's tiptoeing out the box. He's tiptoeing up the lines. Chucks this damn thing. Rick Sutcliffe, you were pitching in 1987. A couple years removed from the Cy Young, as a matter of fact. That did happen in your day. So, all these people at these old guard saying, oh, you can't do this, and it was disrespectful. And, I actually got into a little bit of a disagreement with a guy at work, saying it's a clown movie, he's purposely being a dick. No. You know something? Baseball needs more of this. And you know what it is? Is people are scared. Because you got such this Latin influence. You got such this Cuban influence on the game now. Because the game is so predominantly Latin and Cuban and all these other, nationalities. It's not just a bunch of white guys anymore, who dominated the sport for a long, long time. It's not even many blacks. It's particularly predominated by all different forms of Latinos, Dominicans, Venezuelans, Puerto Ricans, especially Cubans, that played this style of baseball for so long. And then they come over here and they show some emotion. They show some flair. You got finally young kids, because this hugely watched playoff game, you got some young kids watching this going, wow. What a huge homer. And they see Bautista showing emotion. That's one thing I hate about professional sports. You got these people saying, you don't want these guys, doing all this stuff and bat flipping and showing all this emotion because it's disrespectful and unsportsmanlike to the other team. But yet, we complain and chastise it. These sports are boring. These athletes have no personality. All these interviews sound the same. Well, as soon as someone speaks up or as soon as someone shows some damn flair, then they're jerks. Then they're unsportsmanlike. Then they shouldn't be able to do this because it's against the game. It's against the code. You aren't going to find someone that loves baseball history is more than me. I am a baseball history fanatic. For Christ's sake, my all-time favorite player is Mickey Mantle. I go on YouTube in the offseason and watch all these old games. I've watched games from all the way from the 50s. I love old baseball. I truly do. But it's called change. It's called an injection of youth. It's called an injection of different nationalities into this. Change is good for baseball. If we stayed like we did, there would still be no blacks, no Latinos, no nothing in baseball. It'd be a bunch of white guys dominating the sport, with nothing else influencing the game, if it wasn't for change. Was that what you'd want? Would you still want a separate Negro leagues? Would you still want all these guys? Would you want to miss out on the Miguel Cabreras of the world, or the Albert Pujolses, or the Andre Galarragas, or the Roberto Clementes? Or the Willie Mazes, or the Hank Aarons, the Ernie Banks, because you want separate leagues? No, it changed for the good. And that's what this is. You need to allow these guys to show some emotion. Show these people they're human. And it's not like it's a game June 2nd and he hit this home run. This is in a fight for your life, LDS game. That if they don't win this, they were down 2-0 coming in. Now they're tied in a winner-go-home game. Only I think the third team ever to do this. And you're going to get mad because he hit a homer and showed some emotion and flair? Come on! And this is what I hate about baseball. You get all these guys that are all old guard saying the baseball should be played a certain way, and that's my point about Yasiel Puig. They took all the fun out of him, telling him he's got to play a certain way because baseball's been played a certain way for so long, and it's a game of tradition. I understand that. You can still have your tradition, but it can still be reinvented. And I absolutely love this Latin influence and the way these Cuban influence, in fact, defectors have come over here and changed the way the game is, added some flair, added some personality. I loved watching Yoenis Cespedes when he chuck in a ball, there's no one on base. He would just chuck it, underhand chuck it right in the infield. And the man's arm was strong as hell, so he can make an underhand chucking it because he's got a rifle. But that's some flair, man. Just watching these guys play. I don't want to see these robotic guys out there. Well, because they did it like this 70 years ago. And something else? How about Babe Ruth calling his shot? Pointing out to the outfield, talking smack to the pitcher. I'm going to hit this ball right here. That's what I'm going to do. That's not disrespecting your team. The other team. So can it with your morals and all this BS. Joey Bats, keep flipping your bat, buddy, because that was awesome. One of the best innings I've ever saw. So the Blue Jays end up going on and winning it. And it was an amazing game. And a game that, when MLB Network does their 20 greatest games of the last half century, That'll be on there because that was one of the best games I've ever saw. It was one of the craziest games, best games. So that wraps up the American League. So now we got Kansas City versus Toronto. And I'm taking Toronto to win this because here's the thing that scares me. Tonight, obviously by the time this gets uploaded, the game will already be going on. So, my thoughts aren't going to be as prevalent because the series has already begun by the time you're watching this. But David Price can't win big games. It already showed it by, they used him out of the bullpen in Game 4. Elected to use, Marco Estrada. Oh, not Marco Estrada, but, who the hell started that? Marcus Stroman. And tonight they're starting Marco Estrada over David Price in Game 1. And David Price had more than enough for us to go. But David Price, he just can't win in the postseason. R.A. Dickey pitched very well. Estrada's pitched well. And Stroman's pitched well. The back of their bullpen's been great. Zuna's been great. Aaron Sanchez, he's done a great job. So far their back end of the bullpen's hanging up. And their offense has come alive. And I think when Jose Bautista hits a home run as big as he hit like that, and with the way their offense came alive, it just does nothing but fuel a Blue Jays attack. Now, the Royals, they got pushed to the brink against an Astros team that's not as good as the Blue Jays. Now, the Astros, I think their rotation was better than the Blue Jays. But I think when you got guys, Edison Volquez and Yordano Ventura and, just their lack of rotational depth, and you got these quality of hitters, because when they faced each other in Toronto, the Blue Jays took that series pretty handedly. And you got this kind of depth in offense, and you lack rotational strength in the Royals, I think this is going to be the deciding difference. And I know how good the Royals bullpen is, but they look a lot more beatable this year than they did last year. They really do. And, like I said, with the rotational depth that they have and the way the Blue Jays offense has come on, and the way the Blue Jays bullpen's been, and this team already coming back from a 2-0 deficit, they remind me a lot of that 2012 Giants team. They're a scary squad. And when you come back and have that kind of momentum flowing your way, and you're coming off a big win like that, that's kind of like almost the equivalent of, when the Giants played the Reds in 2012 and they came back and Buster Posey hit that grand slam, and then they propelled them. So with the lack of rotational depth, that is pretty much what's going to put me over the top to pick the Blue Jays. Their offense has been finally clicking. They can just burn. They're just too dangerous and too deep for me to not pick them to beat the Royals. And the Royals look human. I know the Royals, they came back and they have a lot of fight. They have a lot of angst. They're a team that shows you can't kill them easily. But I think the Blue Jays will, they'll win this game. They'll win this series in 6 games, and they're going to the World Series. Now, for the NL, the Cubs and Cardinals, what a great series that was. And Jake Arrieta actually looked human in this series. He allowed 4 earned runs in one game this series. I know, so bad. And basically, the Cubs took 1-2 in St. Louis. They go back to Wrigley. And then they take both games at Wrigley. And Lester was great. Adam Wainwright pitched in the series. He pitched pretty good. But basically, the Cubs' young stars, man, Jorge Soler you couldn't get him out this series. At one point, he didn't make it out. He had like 5 walks. He had a huge homer. Chris Bryant had a huge homer in this series. In Game 3, 1 through 6 all had a home run. Dexter Fowler, Jorge Soler, Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant, and I think Javi Baez, he had 1-2 in this game. And I think I'm missing a guy in there, but neither here nor there. They had a great offensive showing. It was the second time ever in baseball history that happened, first time in postseason history. They all had to say, this is a lineup that you don't want to face right now. They're scary. I know how good their rotation is too, and I know how good the Mets rotation is, but you don't want to face this Cubs team because they got that offense. It's like a snake. They're just boom, quick striking. They'll get you. They'll sit there in the backup. They'll back up and get in the corner and poof, pounce on you just like that. They're quick. Because, Kyle Schwarber, that's the guy I was missing, Kyle Schwarber. He had a monster home run in this series, a huge go-ahead homer. Like I said, with the Chris Bryants and Anthony Rizzo's and Soler had a huge home run. He's been outstanding. He's been unstoppable this postseason. And then they lose Addison Russell, and Javi Baez comes in and just fills him beautifully. He's a great defensive shortstop, too, with pop. So, I mean, they surprised the Cardinals. I really do. I think the Cardinals came in, they have over 100 wins, and they underestimated the quality of this team, I think is what it was. Because they're deep. And these young guys, they're hungry. And like I said, with their lineup, that can just score runs on you real quick, and in a real power-laden lineup. And they're just young and hungry. And, for them to go into St. Louis and take a game, and then take both games in Wrigley, and the way Arrieta's pitching, and Lester's pitching, and Jason Hamill pitched good, and their bullpen, has been good too. Their bullpen, I think, only allowed 2 earned runs that entire series. So, they beat the Cardinals pretty handedly. And like I said, they're a scary squad. I think they're the scariest squad in the postseason. Are they the most talented? Who knows? I think I think if you face them up against the Blue Jays, the rotation's better than the Blue Jays undoubtedly, but I think the Blue Jays have the better lineup. The bullpens I think are pretty evenly matched. But I think, with how quickly they can score on you, and the quality of at bats each one of these guys put together on a time in and time out basis, they're a scary squad. So they take the series from the Cardinals. It was an epic series. Game 5 was great. Kyle Schwarber hit a huge home run that actually landed on top of the scoreboard behind the Budweiser sign. And then we move on to the Mets-Dodgers. And this was a great series. DeGrom, Kershaw, Game 1, and the Mets basically owe Daniel Murphy a lot, because Daniel Murphy single-handedly won them that series. They lose. I think they lose Game 1. Win Game 2, go into Citi Field, they lose, they win Game 3, lose Game 4 because Kershaw starts on short rest, and Kershaw was amazing that game. He pitched absolutely outstanding, and then we go to Game 5, and this series, it was exciting. Matt Harvey's game, I think, was the most exciting game because Harvey allowed 3 runs early, and then the Mets stormed back for 4 and ended up winning this game like 10-7. They blew up. Granderson had Cespedes had a monster home run that game in game 3. But it wasn't as exciting as I think the Texas Toronto series has been the most exciting, been the best series so far for excitement factor. But it was a good series. Game 5, Daniel Murphy. Like I said, Daniel Murphy, hit some big home runs for the Mets. Because the rest of the Mets, Cespedes, he's kind of a guy that doesn't show up in the postseason. With the A's, he didn't show up very much. He didn't get there, obviously, last year at Boston. But he hasn't shown up really at all for the Mets. He had a home run in garbage time in a game they were already winning. But Daniel Murphy was pretty much the MVP of that. He had 2 monster home runs. Hit one off of Greinke, hit one off of Kershaw. Or no, he hit 2 off of Greinke. My mistake. So, and he hit one off of Kershaw too. So, I mean, he did the heavy lifting for the Mets with the big home runs. The Mets were actually down. They got a quick lead early in Game 5. Dodgers came back, scored 2 in the 5th, or in the second. My mistake. Excuse me, the second. And then in the 5th inning, the Mets came out, got a run, a couple of runs. They tied it and went ahead. And then DeGrom, battled his control a little bit. He ended up having 8. He wasn't as good as he was in Game 1. Ended up having 8 strikeouts, a couple of walks, and then Noah Syndergaard comes out in the 7th. And wow, 100, 86, with those sliders was unfair. And then Jerry's Familia comes out, 6-out save, and, the Dodgers were done. And the biggest controversy in this series was in Game 2, where Chase Utley takes out Ruben Tejada at second base, and everyone's all crying foul. Oh, it was a dirty slide, and blah, blah, blah. Now, here's my take on this. A lot of this is Daniel Murphy's fault, because Daniel Murphy was a bad throw. He caused Ruben Tejada to turn his back to Chase Utley. Now, some of this falls on Tejada, too. When you turn your back to the oncoming runner, and you put yourself in a vulnerable position, you're going to get knocked over, and, chances are you're going to hurt yourself. Now, it was a really late slide by Chase Utley. He slid very late. He ended up sliding headfirst into Tejada's knee, fractured his fibula. He was gone for the rest of the series, pretty much essentially a broken leg. Now, Mets fans, I love you guys. The Mets are my NL team. But you guys got to calm yourself on screaming, we want Utley, you're like you're going for blood. There's a picture of David Wright taking out Chase Utley nearly the same way at second base. Daniel Murphy, there's another picture floating around of Daniel Murphy against the Phillies. He's like 4 feet out the baseline, purposely trying to take out the second baseman for a double play earlier this year in Philadelphia. Guys, it was a bad slide, and it's a rule that needs to change. These guys have to be able to slide at the 85 foot mark. You can't slide as late as Utley did, but any Mets player in that situation where they have to break up the double play because the run was going to score. This was game 2, by the way, the game the Mets lost because they won game 1. Any player would have did what Chase Utley did. Your sole job there is to not make 2 outs because the tying run was at third. Any guy would have slid into second base hard to get that double play broken up. That he did his job. He did what any player is looking to do in that situation, not let the guy turn the double play. Now, how he did it was completely uncalled for. There's a difference between if Utley slid, because he was on his knees when he slid. He was going up into Tejada, and that's not the first time he's taken out Tejada either with a rough slide. He needs to be fully on his back and sliding through the bag. If he takes out Tejada and Tejada breaks his leg that way, then I'm sorry. You got nothing to cry about. It's a clean slide. But when he's up on his kneecaps and sliding and as late as he slid, that's dirty game. That's foul play. But don't sit here and act, Mets fans, like if it was the roles were reversed and someone did that on your squad, you wouldn't be going there defending, well, he's just trying to break up the double play. He's just doing it like this because he's trying not to have the double play. He's breaking it up. Because you would be arguing the same thing Dodgers fans did. Now, furthermore, the umps did a god-awful job. They called Utley safe. First off, Utley never touched the goddamn bag. Secondly, it should have been interference. Thirdly, it should have been reviewed to call him safe because it was the neighborhood play. I don't care what they say, it was the neighborhood play. So that was a piss-poor job of the umpire's fault. And the Dodgers ended up going on and scored a couple runs and cost the Mets that game, almost a series. Because if the Dodgers win that game, or if the Dodgers won that game and it gave them momentum, But stop crying about it, Mets fans. And it was so classless to start screaming, "We want Utley," because Daniel Murphy did the same thing. There's a picture of David Wright doing the same thing, and if it was someone on the Mets would have did that, breaking up the double play in the same way, you'd win. It's a baseball play. It's a hard slide. He's going into second to break up the double play because you can't afford 2 outs there because the tying run was at third. Dirty slide, but he did what 99.9% of baseball players would have did there. It's a bad rule. They need to change it. Awful job on the umpire side of it. They screwed that up terribly, how they called it. But, they need to change it. Guys got to start sliding through the bag. They can't start aiming for the players. They got to start sliding through the bag so there's some protection. They protect catchers, but second basemen get hit worse than catchers do. Because there's more collisions at second than there is at home plate. Than there was at home plate. But they need to start making it. You got to slide at a certain point. You have to slide through the bag. You can't attempt to waver from the baseline, to try to take out a second baseman's leg. And you can't be on your knees sliding through the bag like Utley was. That was bad. That was really bad. So, neither here nor there. Mets win it, and they're going on to face the Cubs. Now, this is going to be a great series because this is 2 young, hungry, scary squads. Now, Matt Harvey's starting game 1. Against Jake Arrieta, I believe. Oh, no, it's Arrieta. I'm pretty sure it's Arrieta. No, Lester. And Harvey, I don't know, man. Basically, it's going to be hard for me to give my reasons, but I'm going with this gut feeling. Like I said, the Cubs are the team you don't want to play right now. You don't. They're a scary squad. They're just that young team. Their offense has looked a lot better. Like I said, Daniel Murphy was MVP of the Mets that series. No Daniel Murphy, the Dodgers are playing the Cubs right now. They're just that squad you don't want to play. They're a dangerous team. Arrieta and Lester is as good as 1-2 as, Harvey DeGrom. It really is. And I'm excited for the series. And I know how good Syndergaard is too. Now, they're 1-3. I think 1-2, the Cubs are better. I would take Lester Arrieta over Harvey DeGrom. I really would. Because no one's scoring on Arrieta right now, and Leicester is as money gets in the playoffs. Now, you add that third, Hamill, Syndergaard, I'm definitely taking Syndergaard over Hamill. And then Kyle Kendricks over Steven Matz. That's a bit of a toss-up, because Matz is unproven, and, Kendricks hasn't pitched that bad. But I'm taking the Cubs. I'm sticking with my thing. I'm sticking with my gut. They're that team you don't want to play right now. They look awesome. They just got that vigor. That area. I think the biggest thing is they have that potential to go up on you 2-0 real quick with Arrieta and Leicester. They'll lose a couple of games, tie it, and then boom, knock you out with the last two. So, they could go 2-0, let you back in, 2-2, and then they got Arrieta and Leicester to throw at you again, and then you're done. Series over. You lose the series 4-2. So that's what it is. So that's why I'm going to take them. So my prediction is going to be Blue Jays win that bad boy in 6 games. And then the Cubs beat the Mets in 7 games. And it's going to be a Toronto-Chicago World Series. So next time I come on here, we will know. I will dissect the series, any of the controversies that came about it. When I come on here and give my World Series preview. So that's all I got for you guys today. Sorry about the length of this video. I know I ranted quite a bit on that bat flip and that slide a little bit. But hey, I had to get my thoughts. I had to let it out in me, man. I got it. If I don't, complain a little bit and get what I'm thinking, it just drives me nuts. So that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed the video. And more to come. World Series talk next time here on the John Check Sports Media Network. Have a good one, guys.